Hello, welcome to this week's video. Now I think that's probably enough of this product photography stuff. You know me better than that by now. So after that wonderful intro with a nice slow-mo of the product, yeah, we better get into the video. So as you can see from that, this week we're going to be looking at the Apeman H80 Trail camera. Now Apeman were kind enough to contact me and ask me if I wanted to do a review of this product, and I agreed to do it. And I don't always do that, specifically because I don't really like to be tied down to one product, and you know, you never want to be forced into saying something that you don't believe about something. But I'd got a specific reason for wanting to try this, and that reason is this. This is my trail camera. Now I bought this about 18 months ago because now trail cameras can be used for different things. Some people use them for home security, some people use them for setting up on the gardens to photograph and film wildlife, and others, such as myself, use them as like a, I suppose you'd call it a wildlife photography assistant. So what I mean by that is, if I'm out in the countryside and I'm out with my camera and I see a trail or I see some signs of wildlife, it may be that wildlife, I'm not sure what it is, it may be if I'm not sure whether it's still coming through that area, but I can't wait for 4 or 5 days and stake it out to see if anything comes. With one of these, I can basically set this up, leave it, and that can be my assistant. I can come and fetch it in 5, 6, 7 days and have a look, see what's come through, and then either confirm my suspicions and then come back with the camera if I want to, or you just use the footage that I've got from the trail camera. So when Apeman contacted me, I was quite interested to have a look at this, because the one that I'd got, this one, was a complete and utter disappointment. I bought this about 18 months ago, and I probably did what most people do. I had a look on Amazon, and there were like hundreds of trail cameras that all looked the same and all do the same thing. So pretty much universally, they're not much different in the fact that they either shoot 1080p, some shoot 4K. Really, that's you know, there's not an awful lot more they do than that. You know, some shoot at different distances. There's some of the IR sensors are more sensitive or whatever. There must be differences like that, but generally they all do the same thing. So when I was looking, I just saw one for 65 quid, and the reason actually I picked this one was because it's about half the size of the others, and I thought, well, seeing as I'm carrying all this kit around as it is, to get a trail camera that is sort of half the size and half the weight, then it's going to be much easier to carry around. So that's the reason I got it. When I got it, I've had it 18 months, I've used it twice, and the reason I've used it twice is that it's so flipping cumbersome to use. You would not believe it. So let me show you what I mean. So if I open this up, this is where your batteries go. You've got a little screen at the bottom, and I don't know whether you can see it or not, you've got buttons down either side. Now, you might say, well, what's wrong with that? The problem that I find is that generally I'm setting this up in confined spaces, often in poor light, and what you don't want is buttons with little tiny writing on that have basically been pressed into plastic that's the same colour. So there's 6 buttons here, and I have no idea what any of them do. I can't even read the writing, it's so small without my glasses on. And I'd struggle, I think, with my glasses on, because it's just pressed into the plastic. Now, what that means is when I get out there and I'm setting it up, I'm in a confined space, I can't get round, so I'm having to look at that and I'm having to try which button does this, which button does that. No, that's the wrong one, I've changed that setting. And it just became a complete nightmare. And what would happen is I'd set this up, which would take me about 45 minutes, leave it, and then always leave thinking, did I switch that on? Have I pressed the right button to switch it on? And I'd never know whether I'd come back and I'd just not switched it on or not. So my experience of that just meant that I just didn't use it because it was so difficult. This one has been absolutely fantastic, and I'm not just saying that because Apeman's sent it me to trial and use for free, which I'm very grateful for, but right from the start the instruction manual has got a quick start guide. It literally took me 10 minutes to set the settings up that I wanted. So this will shoot in 4K if you want it to, but I only want it at 1080p. So if we look at the inside of this one, you might say it's very similar to the other one. You've got all your sensors and stuff here. If you switch it on, there's your little on and off switch at the bottom here. And you switch it to the first, and that's basically your setup section, and your screen comes on. All your buttons, your 5 setup buttons, all light up. So immediately you can see what they are, and they're all quite self-explanatory. So you've got a little menu on that button, which tells you it's the menu, and it's got menu written above it, just as like a double check. Then you've got an M button, now that's your view mode button. And then your other buttons, you've got an up, a down, and a return button. Dead easy. So once you get into the menu there, you then use the up and down and return keys to either go up and down the menu and choose out the menu. Dead easy. So I had that set up in like seconds, what I wanted. So I've got it set up for shooting 1 still image and then 2 minutes of video. Now, some people might not want that amount of video. I think you can go up to something like 10 minutes, down to 10 seconds. But for me, especially if we're doing YouTube videos, you know, potentially I can get some really useful footage off of this to use in my YouTube videos. So I think something like 2 minutes gives me plenty of time to, you know, get that footage of that animal that's going to be useful where I can do a voiceover or whatever. And you'll see later what I mean by that. But yeah, it's just so dead easy to use. And in a confined space, we're having the buttons that light up just to set it up that last bit and get it, you know, set up. The biggest problem for me, as with all these, is finding them, putting them in the right place on the trail, and that's just a technical thing, really. You know, the fastening on the back is quite easy. There's a strap that goes through here. You've also got like a tripod attachment, as well as there's a plate that means you can attach it to a wall or a post if you want to do something more permanent. But what I tend to do is put the canvas strap through here and lock it to a tree, but then I also put, if you see at the top here, there's another hole. I put a tie wrap through that and then tie wrap it around the branch or whatever of the tree that I'm using, just for that little extra bit of security, even though, you know, if you take a pair of pliers out, you can cut it, but if somebody was to come across it and just see it on the off chance, they would have to get rid of a tie wrap to get the unit off the tree. Right, so I think we better get on to a little bit of the footage that I've taken, and with this. Basically, I've had it out for probably about 3 nights. Now, the first time I set it up, now anybody who's been watching my channel recently will know that I've had a lot of trouble trying to get badger images this year. And if I just set the scene a bit, I've got a local badger set that I've probably been visiting for about 8 years, and not visited it for probably the last 2 and taken any images. So not been back there for a while. But what I've been doing is setting up where I normally set up, and this set, if I explain, is on like an old Motte and Bailey castle site. So a Motte and Bailey is, you've got a hill with a ditch, and then the rest of the hill, and the badgers are set up in this ditch, which is now like a little piece of woodland, so you can't actually see the badgers in the ditch. You have to wait for them to come out onto the side of the Motte and Bailey, which they used to do on the west, and I've been setting up on the west waiting for them to come out when the weather's been right and the wind direction's been right. And I've heard the badgers down in the ditch, and I've been there from, say, half past 5, 6 o'clock until 9:30, and I've just heard them, but they've never come out onto my side of the that I've been waiting, that they've always come before. So I thought, well, here's an ideal opportunity to use this. I've had it for a while, but I really wanted to wait for an opportunity to see whether it would help me out like I wanted to help me out, if you like. So what I did is I set this up on I went down into the ditch during the day and located what I thought was one of the main entrances into the set. I mean, there's a lot there, a lot of entrances, but this one looked well used. And I set it up on a tree, left it overnight. Went back the following day and fetched it, and the memory card was full, which was a good sign. So I'll just show you this footage now. So obviously here you can see that this is the entrance to the set where I set it up. It's quite an enclosed space, like I've been talking about. It's really difficult to get around, but just managed to set it up on a tree so that it was pointing in that direction. Now the important thing to note is that where I've set this camera up, if the badgers were to walk towards the camera and underneath it, that would mean that they'd be going off in the direction where I was set up with the camera. And as you can see, it also what information this camera gives you, it tells you the time that this is happening. So it gives you a timestamp, which I've left on this video here so you can see it. It tells you the temperature, the time, the date. So that information is crucial. So as you can see here, they're coming out really early at like 5:30. The pattern that they seem to have is they start to come out at 5:30, and generally that's the youngsters will come out, and then they have like a grooming session that sort of carries on till about 8, 8:30, and then they start to disperse. Now the important thing for me was that they were dispersing over the back, so they were going away from the camera. Every time they came out and disappeared, they were disappearing up those tracks that were leading to the east, which is exactly the opposite direction that I've set up, because they never used to go in that direction. So what that potentially means is that where they're feeding now has changed, and that's just the direction that they're going in. They're not coming out of the front as much as they used to. Really useful information for me, because obviously now that means that I can set up on the eastern side when the wind direction's right, and hopefully try and get some images from that side, which I wouldn't have done if I hadn't used this. I hadn't used this camera. So yeah, really useful information. And also you can see that you know, you've got some useful footage if I'm doing a vlog. So if you want to, when I do a badger vlog, if I get some images, I can again use this footage as well within that to make up part of the video. So all really useful stuff, and stuff that I wouldn't have known if I hadn't been using this. So that solved one of my problems with this straight away, and as I say, no problem setting it up, 2 or 3 minutes, done and away, and I know it's working. So it gives you that countdown to say, right, I'm going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I always generally get my face, because I'm not that quick closing the thing up before I leave, so normally the first shot is a picture of me disappearing. Anyway, this second film I want to show you, and we'll just take a look at this now. Now this is shot over just outside my back garden really. As you've probably heard me mention in the past, we do get subjected to quite a lot of flooding in the fields behind us, and you know when that happens that a lot of the wildlife is going to disappear. All the small stuff probably perishes and the big stuff moves away. And we had a lot of flooding in the spring. So what I wanted to do was find out what's come back, because obviously in the autumn it's useful for me to know what's there. It's a resource that I can use as a wildlife photographer to get back in that area and get some images and some film. What I did the other day is I went down to the beck which borders the wood, little stream, and what I was looking for is just any signs of animals coming down to the water. And I found a spot where it looked like the vegetation had been trampled down the banking as if something was coming through to get a drink, and it was quite shallow, and probably they were crossing into that field as well. So I went across, and sure enough, I could see a little sign of a trail in the wood. It was really close in. I'm talking, I'd got about just over 1 metre of height and probably 1 metre to work in width, so not much room at all. And I set this up, and as you can see, this is what we had coming through. So first we had a fox, but what surprised me was we also got another fox. Now these they look quite young to me. They don't look like this year's young, I could be wrong, but they look like, you know, probably last year's young, and potentially from the same litter. I'm not sure, they just don't look as old as some of the foxes we get around. They look like last year's to me, but as I say, I can't be sure. And yeah, they were sticking together, so it was nice to see those. And they came back, they were there during the day and obviously during the night as well. And what we also got was this roe deer buck. Now he seemed to be doing circuits, he seemed to come round and then he'd appear again in the same position. So yeah, I don't know whether he staked that out as his territory or what, but it was really lovely to see him. Magnificent buck there with the horns, and obviously all the velvet scraped off because it's coming to it's around their rutting season now. They rut earlier than things like red deer, so again, really interesting to see that. And also these surprise visitors, which a couple of magpies. Now I don't know whether we had a brood of magpies and they fledged from a tree nearby or what, but yeah, I don't know what they were coming down onto the floor for. I think they might have been a little bit interested in what the camera was. Whether it was see the shiny bits on it on the lens and things, I don't know, but it was really interesting to see them come through. So that really is you know, quite a lot of footage for, I think it was there one night and then sort of 2 half days, if you like, so a day and a night, and all that happening. And obviously again it tells you what times that's happening, so again that's useful. You tend to think of things like foxes only moving at night and laying up during the day. Well, obviously that's not the case because they're moving around here, as are the deer, just probably more undercover and more difficult to see. So yeah, I'm really happy with the footage that this has taken. As I say, it'll be a really useful tool for in my YouTube videos, but also for when I'm looking for intelligence about what's in a particular area. I can leave this out and go back and collect it after a week and know that I'm pretty sure that, you know, it's going to have some information on here that's going to be useful to me. So anyway, cracking bit of kit. It's made so much difference to me as regards the one that I bought, and just really showed me that, you know, those little things that you perhaps don't think are important can become really important in the situations that you're using it in. Right, that's it for me from this week. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope it's given you a little bit of insight into this particular model of trail camera. And I will put a link to this particular model down in the description below if you want to get hold of one of these. Really useful bit of kit, really easy to use. And as I say, I've been stung by the fact that I thought they were all pretty similar, and it really is those little finer details that you think, you know, it's not going to make much of a difference, but when you're trying to use the thing in certain conditions, the usability of the unit is just so easy compared to that. Dead easy to set up when you're not on site, and extremely easy to set up when you are on site and know that you're going to have it set up and recording, and when you go back, you know, it's anything that's been in front of that camera, it's going to record, and you're going to have some useful video footage of it. So really cracking bit of kit. So as I say, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. And yeah, for those of you who've not subscribed to the channel, then please think about subscribing. I will see you next week for another video. Potentially it could be badgers. Now I've got this new intelligence. We'll just have to wait and see. I'm a little bit dependent on weather conditions from there. So yes, we'll see what the weather's like for this following week and see whether I can get down and get some badger pictures. But we'll just keep trying. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.